Hello my fellow gamers. If you didn't see my last video where I basically yapped for 2 hours talking about this really cool Dread Knight subclass and all the things that I thought about it and maybe wanted to update or tweak or otherwise consider, is it OP, as in overpowered, or would this be fun? Obviously I think it would be fun. I spent like 2 hours talking about it. I think it's really cool, but it was also made for 5e, so I thought, some of these things and the design wise, should it be updated for 5.5 based on how it works, because part of how it works is about the number of attacks you can do, and now you can do more attacks, so maybe it needs to be depowered, and some of its features maybe a bit too strong for my taste in terms of what I would put in a game or compare it to other things. So that was only 3 minutes of me yapping. If you want to hear the full 2 hours, you can watch the last video. But I thought I would make a hopefully shorter video where I just go over and go through sort of the edits that I went about making for my ideal 5.5e version of this subclass, what I would want to change and why I would want to change it. So starting with the Dread Sight, I say just give them Devil's Sight Magical Darkness right from level 3, lets them play around with their friends who are also getting it probably around this level and being able to cast Darkness starting at this level, rather than just Dark Vision and having it upgrade at level 7, just give it to them at level 3. Ominous Presence, just giving the option to get a different skill if you already took Intimidation at level 1, let's say. And then this might be me over editing, which is actually maybe a big part of what I end up doing with a lot of this, is letting Thaumaturgy be a bonus action and not really worrying about the fact that the booming voice option exists. I think it's fine to sort of have this extra language about striking fear, and I even considered whether you should get darkness for it, but I think I decided against that. That would encourage the wrong kind of gameplay where you'd be trying to Ominous Presence scare Thaumaturge your allies to farm darkness outside of combat. Which brings us to the Rising Darkness. I think you could reword this a little bit. I moved some stuff around, like the additional minute turning off and the action surge stuff. I thought it should go up higher, and I also called the actual damaging part of it something, calling it Hungering Dark. I thought that would be a good way to just reorganize it, and instead of being at the start of your turn, being at the end of your turn just makes it a lot faster and cleaner in the actual live game of it, rather than you'd be constantly asking for checks at the start of every other creature's turn. And I just thought that 11th level was more in line with other fighter subclasses rather than bumping up the damage die at 7th level. Also because I do think the aura is actually really powerful, and having it do damage to multiple creatures could be pretty nuts. I did think maybe bump it down to die size. You let me know what you think. Maybe I'm going overboard, trying to rebalance things. I actually think I added too much bloat to the beginning of the thing by wanting to include an additional option, something else to do with your bonus action to try to gain some dread so that you could build it up more quickly. So I came up with this Inspired Dread ability. I like the concept of it, but I honestly think I might have overwritten things. So, am I making it better? Am I fixing anything? I don't know, you can be the judge. I just think if I wanted to play it, that's what this is all about. It's homebrew for my own game. And if you think that it would work for your game, then I don't know, I hope this helps somebody. This is just sort of actualizing on a lot of the thoughts that I yammered on about in the last video. And I just thought I'd quickly go over this before the obsession left my memory, and we'll get to a little bit later on how we take this even further from here. So this is kind of just like the 5.5 draft of the version of the Dread Knight from the Ezmerelda's guide that I would feel more comfortable bringing to a 5.5e table if I wanted to play this subclass. So moving on to the level 7 abilities. Death Grasp, I thought let it be more like a ranged cantrip spell, bump the damage die down to d6s, and this is where I maybe thought I should have kept it at a d6 instead of a d4 for the Hungering Shadow, which I renamed, just because then everything would kind of be a d6, but I figured if I make it stronger, I gotta bump down the damage die, but then also let you spend more of your darkness points to increase the damage kind of scaling on cantrip levels and cantrip scaling damage, but you spend a little bit of extra darkness for it, which feels more or less fair because the 4 darkness points that you could spend on it ends up being about the same as some of your later level 15 abilities. The damage numbers are basically balanced, and you are doing it as a bonus action, remember, so it's pretty good. The Instilling Terror makes a lot of sense for a Dread character, and I thought this would actually be really appropriate for the whole theme that if you're frightened and you take the damage from the aura, that you take additional damage. That really incentivizes you to actually want to strike fear into people, specifically to inflict the frightened condition, and then it makes your aura on them work better. Yeah, that's probably my favorite idea in terms of thematics. And then just Obliterate is a smite, so just copy paste the language of the new smite spells so that it works more clearly as a smite. And the damage I didn't think was very good at D4, so make everything a D6, and then you'd actually feel incentivized to use it. The AC penalty is cool. Equal to your proficiency bonus could get crazy at later levels, but then again, everybody's stronger too, so it's kind of like whatever. It's mostly the smite, I think, that you're wanting to use it on. And then Void Vortex, this used to be a higher level ability, but I was like, if you were a Eldritch Knight, you'd be able to cast Darkness at 7th level, so why not let them cast Darkness by 7th level? Make it just like the Darkness spell, give it to them at 7th level. Makes sense to me. Feels right. Waiting till level 15 was way too late to be casting Darkness as this Darkness guy to begin with. So increasing the radius, I thought 40 feet, even though you're at 16th level by the time it can happen, I just thought 40 feet was like kind of nuts. And pretty much just decided to scale everything back just a little bit because this aura radius can do basically passive damage, and it was a d6 of damage, so it was even more wild potential for damage numbers, as I explained last time. Inexorable, I figured to make it worth your while, you have to be able to choose how many you spend, but there might just be different ways to go about implementing a similar kind of ability like this. Kind of like the Barbarians feature that lets them regain a number of hit points when they go down to 0. They get the same thing at level 11. You drop to 0 hit points with Rage, you get a number of hit points back. You could do something really similar to that. But moving on to the level 15 abilities, just putting in the word hostile here makes Bane Shadow like way more viable, because especially given the size of your aura, it could be really a pain in the butt for your allies to be like within 30 feet of you or 40 feet of you or whatever it could have been to be affected by the minus d6. So just adding the word hostile there makes this like play so much nicer as an ability. Ravenous Dark, just updating some of the language around how this works based on the 2024 new updated terms and things, just makes things a little clearer. Same with, I didn't mention earlier, but the swirling vortex of shadows, just calling it an emanation is like the updated language. Also wanting it to work with unarmed strikes. I didn't mention that, but I think it would be cool if it did. So I want it. And then just trying to make it clear how an ally can help. Minor language tweaks, trying to make sure it reads clear and more consistently with new stuff. I could go over this again with another draft, but these are the basic ideas of it. Giving you the Void Vortex that you got at level 15 originally, but trying to make it a little bit different and say that it's worth spending the 4 on by making it last until the end of your next turn, and you get to choose to end it like a concentration if you wanted to end it early, and spells a 5th level or lower can't be turned out, versus the sort of weakened up version earlier is just like the Darkness spell until the start of your next turn. And you can't choose to end it because the start of your next turn is soon enough anyway. So yeah, you got 2 versions of it now. You'll probably just cast the lower version with your 2 Darkness instead of casting it with the 4, but hey, I didn't want to change too much. I guess I kind of left it there just as a remnant of what it used to be. And then the Evernight feature, I said basically this makes you immortal if you just never choose to lose a darkness point. Like, why would you? You're immortal, you can't die for almost any reason. Like, I went over a couple ways you might still be able to drop, but I thought to add some stakes to it, when you drop to 0 hit points, lose a darkness every turn. Lose an extra one if you have a failed death saving throw. Like, you can have 3 failed death saving throws and lose 4 darkness at the end of every turn. That means you're struggling to keep this immortality thing going. by accumulating enough darkness every turn to keep yourself fueled, and it's like sucking it out. I think it's more dramatic. It adds tension and stakes. It's a little less crazy overpowered, and maybe, I mean, it's a level 18 feature, like who cares about balance, but it's maybe more balanced to what the abilities of some of the other fighters get by level 18, and even then it's still really a wild power to have. So those were just some of the updates that I went ahead and tweaked, pretty much what you would expect coming out of the comments from my last video, which was 2 hours. So here's just the clean copy of what I changed without all of the edit marks, just so if you wanted to take a quick look through, you could see what I was saying and all this business. And you just see it's a lot cleaner and easier to read when you don't have the suggestions and edit marks from the Google Doc on there. You can actually see clearly how I tried to lay it out. It's a little less messy. And I don't know, I might have overwritten it. I might not have changed enough or too much in certain places. I certainly think I nerfed it a little bit, which probably if I was going to bring it to a table, it needed, because otherwise somebody's going to look at this and be like, I don't know, dude, seems kind of broken, seems busted. I know it doesn't really get nuts until you get to really high levels, but who knows what kind of game we'd be playing. I mean, I hope I get to play it, and that's all what this has all been about, is trying to figure out, hey, could I play this in 5.5e? Could I bring this to a table and feel good about bringing it to a table and not just be like the main character because it's too awesome? I mean, I should hope so. That's the goal at the end of the day. So 2 hours, and the results, this follow-up video, it's only about 20 minutes or so. So I hope you have enjoyed this brief recap of some of the ideas that I went over in that last video and kind of tried to actualize in this version here. But that's not all I have to say about this, because let me just be clear. This subclass is so cool and has literally inspired hours upon hours of my thought, and only a fraction of that ends up being on these videos, and the last video was 2 hours, so you got a pretty good idea, because that one took like 5 hours to make. So suffice to say, I've been thinking about this quite a bit, and it occurred to me that I wanted to take this even further. So in this subclass, I saw two main ideas that were kind of maybe competing for some space within the overall theme design. Now, I think it really works well, don't get me wrong, but if I wanted to go a little further with some of my own ideas that have been inspired by this Dread Knight, I needed to consider both the dread and all of the darkness and shadow stuff going on. And so I have devised my own Dread Knight spin-off that focuses purely on the dread, as well as a different subclass that focuses just on the shadows. And both take inspiration from this original Dread Knight design, but take those two core aspects of it and split them off into two more direct, hard directions, all unto themselves. So I would love to go over all of those cool new ideas with you guys, but I'm gonna save that for a different video, because I figure you're more likely to watch something that's maybe like 20 minutes instead of 2 hours, and you can let me know if I'm right. But once again, thank you so much for watching, and your comments, suggestions, or feedback. Thank you to Jack Wayhill, the original designer, Ezmerelda's Guide to Ravenloft, for making this subclass, which has consumed my mind and just inspired some just general awesome D&D subclass visions that I have ever so enjoyed. And that's despite basically spending 2 videos now just talking about stuff that I would want to change. It's still awesome, and I'm having a blast. I hope you're having a blast watching these, and I really look forward to showing you how I spun this into 2 different directions, because I think it's a lot of fun, and I was inspired to kind of go in some new directions that I can't wait to share with you. So I hope you will subscribe, and I will just see you next time. All right, that's it. I know, can't believe it. Okay, I'm done. No more yapping. That's it. Bye-bye.